Welcome back to stage 3 of the Amgen Tour of California, on a route that takes us from San Jose and then in a snaking northerly direction to the Mount Diablo State Park, where we finish up the fearsome climb of the same name, Mount Diablo. 5.4% gradient, 16% it maxes out at near the top. A very difficult climb. We've only got 20 miles to go of the stage. The peloton being led by Team Sky and 7 riders still out in front. Lost one of their number a few kilometers ago. Will Routley, the Canadian, scored the point earlier in the stage, the King of the Mountain, so we'll keep that jersey. He's now safely back in the peloton. But it's Team Sky setting a tempo at the front. The 7 riders out in front still have a relatively healthy lead. We are getting reports on your screen. We have a gap of 4 minutes 5. We have also got other slightly conflicting information that the gap has come down to around 3:20, so we'll keep you fully abreast of that. We do believe there is a little bit of problem with our graphics, but we'll keep you as best informed in relation to the correct time gap. But Sky certainly have turned up the pace over the last 15 or 20 miles and have started to eat into the lead of the 7 riders in front, and they are Ruben Ziponks of Bissell, Martin Wyants of Belgium, of Belkin, sorry, Jonathan Clark of United Healthcare, Paul Voss of NetApp Endura, Robbie Squire of James Hagens Berman, Luis Davia, the Mexican national road race champion of Jelly Belly, and David Lozano of Team Novo Nordisk. The team made up entirely of people of riders with type 1 diabetes. And there we go, Bradley Wiggins looking very, very relaxed and lean, as we said before, surrounded by his teammates, saving 2 of the younger climbers for the final climb, it appears. We haven't seen Josh Edmondson on the front yet, or Joseph Dombrowski. Dombrowski, a very good, well, slim, young American climber, knows the area very well indeed. So no doubt he's passed that information on to Bradley Wiggins. We did see Bradley Wiggins talking to Danny Pate about the climb, so he's going to be pretty well informed. But at the moment, it's the power horse, well, the workhorses of the Team Sky who are riding on the front to keep that tempo high and try and bring that break back. Luke Rowe, Danny Pate, Christian Nays, Nathan Earl, all working hard at the front with Ian Boswell as well, and you can see them there. The wind obviously coming from the left-hand side, and there we have a corrected graphic now, the gap down to 3 minutes and 5 seconds, so they have shaved a minute off in around the last 10 miles, Brian, so they are slowly eating into the lead of the 7 leaders. But the lead is still not giving up and working very, very well together. But so far, so good for Team Sky.
Yeah, looking good. Danny Pate obviously came up in the last 10 kilometres. They had a bit of a chat if the gap was not coming down. The maximum they got was 6 minutes and 25 seconds. The best place in the breakaway was at 2 minutes and 42 seconds. So they had to try and do something. So it was kind of hovering about the 5-minute mark. You see Mark Cavendish in the green jersey just towards the back, 22. So he'll just get to the bottom of the climb and ride up, save his power for another day. But yeah, it's Danny Pate's come up, made the difference. He's a big powerhouse, and they've taken about a minute off.
Quite interesting, as we see the figure of Mark Cavendish there, is just stretching his muscles. He knows what's coming up, and as you correctly said, Brian, he's just going to want to get to the finish to limit his losses. There'll be no problems for him doing that. But interestingly, although he's riding in the green jersey, yesterday's stage there was no points awarded, and today there's no points awarded towards that jersey, so they're not going to be eaten away. Very different than the points jersey in the Tour de France. And of course on stage 6, the other mountaintop finish, no points awarded. The points are only awarded on stage where they feel it could be a bunch sprint or a stage that isn't mountainous or a time. So quite an interestingly, slightly complicated classification, but I hope I've clarified that for you. So Mark Cavendish is in no danger at all today of losing that green jersey.
I'll tell you what, Matt, it's nice to see the Mexican champion in here, and that's Luis Davila of the Yellow Belly team. He's obviously got the green shorts in there, 22-year-old. He's been national champion for the last couple of years. It's not often we see many riders from Mexico, and nice to see them in the break. So obviously Jonathan Clark, United Healthcare, he's in the blue and the white. We don't get a lot of views of the breakaway to go through them. You can just see the extra white marks on the jersey of Thor Hushoff, the Norwegian champion. A lot of riders having shedding a lot of salt today because of the conditions. Fast Freddy Rodriguez at the back, the American road race champion, won that in a small group sprint last year at at not a very young age. He's
40 years of age,
yeah,
isn't he? He's the third oldest rider in the race behind Zubeldia and, of course, Jens Vogt.
Yeah, so yeah, there's a few oldies in here, but still goodies at that same time. Obviously, Jens Vogt done a good time trial yesterday, and he wanted to try and keep in the top 10 today with a good performance. He rode well last year. Just going through last year, when we look at Fast Freddy here, obviously Leo Koenig won the stage here the first time they went out Mount Diablo in the history of the Amgen Tour of California. But Acevedo finished 7 seconds behind. Also, Mad Boucher, he finished 29 seconds behind. Lawson Craddock, I said we can't discount him at all. Rode a good time trial yesterday, finished 7th last year. Jose Mendes of Netap Endura finished 9th. Rowan Dennis 11th last year at 44 seconds. Moynard of BMC at 56 seconds. Chad Haga, who's now riding for Giant Shimano as well, he was just over a minute down. Vossi was in there, Paul Voss, and Zubeldia also in there, just over 1 minute. So that's the riders that are in this in the race today. They rode well, they know the climb, but just to show you the time gaps, you know, you can in the last 3 kilometers you can lose about 30 seconds if you're struggling.
You certainly can. It's a very, very tough finish. Added to the mix, the very, very hot conditions. And it just shows, I think, although Bradley's still got it all to do, excuse me, on the climb today, the sort of form he's in. There was comments made by Taylor Finney yesterday that there was, I mean, Taylor didn't think he had a particularly good ride, but still it was a respectable ride, and they said there was nothing, when Bradley Wiggins is on form like that, there's nothing you can do. But of course the riders that you've talked about, Moynard being one of them, Matthew Bush was up there in the top 10 overall. They're now over 2 minutes down on Bradley Wiggins, and that was lost just in a 20.1 kilometre time trial. A superb, you know, display of strength by Bradley Wiggins. Do you think riders are going to be frightened of Bradley Wiggins? Do you think it's going to, they're going to think, well, do you think they're actually going to be in a position where they think, actually, I'm going to wait to attack because he's clearly on very, very good form? When you look at a rider like Bradley Wiggins on form, in the shape he's in, he has a certain presence. He has a certain gravitas, you know, that riders will respect. And I would imagine fear as well. Do you think that will affect riders' psychology as they hit the climb?
Well, that's where the sports director comes into play. He has to focus the minds of the team, and they have a plan and stick to the plan no matter what. Team Sky have got their plan, and obviously Bradley Wiggins has been in this situation umpteen times as a yellow jersey, so he's not fazed by any of this. He's got his plan. Team Sky will talk every day about this. They'll have the meeting in the morning, and they'll decide how they want to play this out. And it's the same with every team. Likes of Netap Endura, they were, I think, looking for Jose Mendes to be in the breakaway today, but he wasn't there and Paul Voss is there, so they have to kind of readjust as they go along. That's why, you know, we love cycling, because the dynamics change all the time. It's fantastic to see it all happening. But the likes of Trek Factory Racing, Garmin Sharp, and these teams, they haven't done any work whatsoever, and they're just sitting back and waiting. And I don't think Bradley's going to lose much time, if any, at all today. But he's definitely going to be attacked, and that's why most of the teams are sitting back waiting to take that opportunity, because you can just see Danny Pate giving it big licks on the front of the peloton now. All these 4 riders have ridden right from the start. Actually, 9th and 10th over the top of the climb was Rowe and Boswell, so they have been riding all day, so they're going to be slightly fatigued now as we hit this climb. So he'll be depleted in numbers, but he's still got 2 young guys behind him to help him, and that's Edmondson and Dombrowski.
Team Sky lead the chase on stage 3 of the Amgen Tour of California. San Jose to Mount Diablo, we have 7 leaders in front. They've been away since the flag drop this morning, and they currently have a gap of 3 minutes and 10 seconds over the Team Sky-led peloton. Working for Bradley Wiggins, you can just see in the middle of your picture, he's now obscured in the yellow jersey. As the bunch fans across the road, it won't be long before they reach the foot slopes of this climb. Another few kilometers, another 7 or 8 Ks, and they'll be in the national park. But the breakaway riders, consisting of Ruben Zepunkt of Bissell, Martin Wyants of Belkin, Jonathan Clark of United Healthcare, Paul Voss, the German, riding on the NetApp Endura team, a very likeable character indeed. Robbie Squire from James Hagen's Berman, 24-year-old American, and Luis Davia of Jelly Belly, the Mexican national road race champion, as well as the Spaniard, David Lodano. They are working very well together. Still 3 minutes. Team Sky slowly but surely are eating into the lead of these guys. They were 8 strong earlier on in the race. Of course, we've lost one of their riders, Will Roatley, to the peloton. His job is done. He'll be wearing the Mountains jersey for another day. So a very respectable ride from him today. Had one objective and won the climb very early on. As you can see now, possibly a tailwind here. The trees either side of the road sheltering the riders, so that's where you get them fanning out across the road, despite the fact that Team Sky are still riding quite hard at the front, and the gap now holding at 3 minutes. And it won't be long, Brian, before we hit the foot slopes of Mount Diablo. And what have the riders got in store? We know the gradient is 5.4 average. It kicks up at the top. What's the road like?
Yeah, the road's actually okay. It's wide enough, so there's it's not like you get into the kind of Pyrenees and you get a single track. It's quite a wide road, as most of the roads here in the States. So we can just see a lot of the teams coming up towards the front. You can just see Belkin again. They have disappointment with 10 Dam crashing after the finish of the time trial yesterday, but they'll be looking to try and do something. Belkin obviously want to show well here in the Tour of California for their sponsor. 10 Dam is the rider that they would be want to look after. There's so many other riders in there. Jack Bobridge, who I've been told is going to have a good crack today as well. They have got a rider in the breakaway, very experienced rider, Martin Winans. He's been a pro for about 10 years. So, he's one of these kind of strong riders. This year he was 6th in Kuurne Brussels Kuurne, so he's one of these kind of strong classics riders. And he's probably been told in the breakaway, look, just ride, try and keep this pressure on Team Sky.
And yeah, we have another crash. We saw them fanning across the road, and at this stage in the race, riders are getting very fatigued. It's hot. They've got nearly 100 miles in the legs already, and a slight lapse in concentration, and we've seen number 53 there, and that's Matthew Heyman, formerly of Team Sky himself, a big, strong rouleur, has hit the deck quite hard. His skin suit was very torn, so it looks like 4 or 5 riders have crashed. They're all back and riding again, but that's going to hurt. That's certainly going to take the wind out of the sails. Not a place that you wanted to crash, especially if you had any objectives of getting up that climb particularly quickly. But I think we've got a slow motion here of this one, Brian, yet right in the middle of the group. Couldn't see exactly what happened. There's no road furniture there. It looks like it's simply rider error, a bit of a touch of wheels.
That's
and
all
down
it is.
they've gone. It's simple as that.
3/4 away towards the back of the bunch there, and I think it's a case of we can see some teams starting to move up the outsides, and as you know, Matt, when you're 3/4 away back in the bunch, it's either right, how can I get out to the left or the right to move up, and somebody's moved over, touch of wheels, and there's just a wee bit of nervousness in the peloton as we see this rider from Optum in the orange helmet here. That's Huff, and he'd probably be in a huff after crashing.
You took the words right out of my mouth there.
Yeah,
that was supposed to be my pun.
Okay,
but, there
you
we
want
go.
to rewind then?
Yes, please.
Okay, as we see that rider Optum in 1, 2, 3 has obviously been involved with that crash.
I bet he's in a bit of a huff. Thank you. No. Joking aside, it's not good fun when you fall off. But again, riders are very tired at this point in the race, and it is very easy to take your eye off the ball. All it takes is a slight look sideways, and then you're off. And you do often get, right, it's surprising, all these riders are very skilled, they're professionals, this is what they do for a living, but it's surprising sometimes how riders can take their eye off the ball as we head back to the break. And it's Paul Voss.
Just look at the speed of them, Matt. They've been told they want to drive into this climb, keep the pressure on Team Sky, because they want to tire out the 4 riders in the front, so that we come to the climb. He only has Christian Knies, Edmondson and Dombrovski, so they want to keep the pressure on. So that is, some people ask, why'd you go on a breakaway if you're going to get caught? It's you have a team meeting, and obviously for some of these riders it's about getting in the breakaway for sponsors, to show your sponsors on TV. But there's other things like Martin Winans, Paul Voss, get somebody in that breakaway, keep the pressure on Team Sky as we start to see some other teams come to the front of the peloton.
And there we see Matt Heyman, victim of that crash a kilometre or so ago, scarred. He's cut his left hip and his elbow. He's going to be not very pleased at all. But as many of you will know, there is a doctor. We've got Barbie on board that one as well. But he'll now be patched up on the move. Some magic spray, a bit of a wipe down. Not much more he can do, really. He might get that patched up so he doesn't get dirt in the wounds. That's the last thing you want. And that's one of the reasons, apart from aesthetics, that riders do shave the legs when they come off at speed. with hairy legs and you get bits of grit and dirt caught in the hairs, it can create an infection. So with shaved legs, although it is aesthetic as well, and a little bit more improved aerodynamics, of course, it's primarily because it's better if riders do crash. It's easy to clean the wound so you don't get infections.
And the car they use for doctors' cars are normally cabriolets.
They are normally
because
cabriolets.
it's easier to patch up the rider.
There we go. Well, before we hit the slopes of Mount Diablo, before the action really takes place, I'm going to give you one little fact of the day. It's a bit of a golden nugget. We passed through Livermore earlier on in the stage, and this city, Brian, was home to a 4-watt light bulb in the fire station that's been lit since 1901.
What was that?
It's a light bulb that's been lit since 1901, making it the world's longest lasting light bulb.
How long?
Over 100 years. There we go. Back at the breakaway here on the foot slopes of Mount Diablo. The gap now down to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the United Healthcare team car. We may get a little bit of picture breakup on this climb. The climb is punctuated by some trees. We are in a national park, of course, so there is forests. So excuse us if we do get picture breakup. I know our host broadcast will try and get the best possible pictures to you, but sometimes this is the very nature of broadcasting in these sorts of environments. As we head back to the break, and you can see there's a definite gradient there, but it's not too steep. They're still travelling at a fair lick. And that's Martin Wynants, the Belgian, possibly calling for some water. There was, I think, the United Healthcare team did come up and give some water to their rider there.
Well, this is the point they're racing to, Mark, this right-hand turn, and the road narrows ever so slightly. There's no real panic. There's still a long way to go on this stage and this climb, so but the breakaway are still trying to you know, keep this advantage, keep the pressure on the teams at the front, but it's all changed at the front of the peloton. And now we see the team of Cannondale in the lime green. Also BMC were in there, and I could also see Giant Shimano up towards the front also.
That have sensed that Team Sky have had a hard day riding on the front all day. So we shall see what happens over the next few kilometres as the road starts to ramp up. It's BMC on the front at the moment. So we're on the final climb of stage 3 of the Tour of California. We started in San Jose. We're ending the stage today on the fearsome slopes of Mount Diablo in the national park of the same name. We are now on the slopes. We had a breakaway. We have a breakaway of 7 riders. They have a gap at the foot of this climb of just over 2 minutes. We'll get confirmation of the exact gap in a minute, but the gap has been brought down steadily by Team Sky, riding, of course, for Sir Bradley Wiggins, resplendent in yellow today after his victory in yesterday's 20-kilometre time trial, where he absolutely smashed the field to bits in a quite remarkable display of power that have no doubt has got some of the general classification contenders very worried indeed. Of course, we do still have all of this climb to come. Bradley Wiggins riding very near the front. His team, most of his teammates now would have been expended. Would have no doubt there'll be a couple of teammates left, possibly Christian Knays and the 2 young climbers on Team Sky, Josh Edmondson and Joe Dombrowski, who'll be staying with him as long as they can. We thought Team Sky were going to take it up at the bottom, Brian, but other teams have now got into the mix, which is very interesting. Cannondale for one, and for Peter Stettiner, BMC have taken up the pacemaking. It did look like it was Greg Van Avermaet doing a long turn at the bottom just to keep the pace high, as riders drop like flies from the back of the peloton now.
Well, you just touched on that about team tactics. Sky have got their team tactics, and so if the other teams, and obviously Shiandri, who's here for BMC, has decided, right, as soon as we hit this climb, we're going to put the pressure on and see Swiss champion Michael Schaar comes towards the front. He wants to make this climb as difficult as possible. So, you know, they have their team tactics and they stick with them no matter what. They're not just going to say, oh, we'll sit behind Team Sky, they're doing a good tempo. No, they have their own team tactics and they have their own, you know, sports director that will say, look, no matter what any other team is going, we have got a plan and we're going to stick with it. And that's why they've decided to make it hard right from the bottom here.
And that's what makes it it's so interesting to watch. I was quite fascinated to see Cannondale at the front there, driving very hard to the bottom of the climb. But this break now is splintering under the pressure. Martin Wynants stepping out, looking quite relaxed on his bike. as riders drop back. It looks like David Lozano is losing a few wheel lengths, but Paul Voss is still in there, and so is the young national champion of Mexico, Luis Davia. So 4 riders now in front. Lozano trying to keep in contact, but as we said, this isn't a steep climb. It's long, it's gradual for most of the climb until it kicks up right at the end, Brian. It's 5.4%. So it's the kind of a climb that you can get into a good rhythm and actually work in a group, and there is a definite benefit as opposed to very steep climbs of actually riding in the slipstream of other riders.
It's a power climb at this moment in time, and that's why we're seeing the big power guys that are coming towards the front. That's why you see Martin Wymans of Belkin. As we said earlier on this year, he finished 6th in Kuurne-Brussels-Kuurne. He's been a pro for 10 years, 32-year-old. So this is the sort of climb that when you start putting the power down early on, that's when, if you've been in the breakaway like all day, like most of these riders, it's tired legs, and you know, you get shed straight away. So it is a power climb. We get to about a mile to go, you know, just but a kilometre and a half to go. It goes to 10%, and then it's hard all the way towards the finish. So the hard parts are all still to come. A lot of riders, as we said, know this climb. Paul Voss now comes towards the front. He's doing something similar to what happened last year with when Leo Koenig won the stage. David De La Cruz was the rider in front in the breakaway, and he just kept the pressure on. Going with him at this moment in time is Martin Wynants, who we've already mentioned, in the green from Belkin. Also Robbie Squire from Jamis. He's just behind him in the red. And the rider at the back is the Mexican champion, the young rider, Luis Davila, the 22-year-old. So 4 riders, original 8, dropped the King of the Mountains. Now we're on the lower slopes of the climb with the funny man and the funny hat,
I think
having a big flag.
Yeah, we certainly are going to see a little bit of that. A little bit dangerous that it does frustrate me a little bit, especially when these riders are riding at speed. But yeah, there we go. I'm glad he's out the way now, leaving these riders to their own devices. Paul Voss.
Wynants
Look, that was a semi attack there. Wynants, again, a very talented rider. 10th, well, he got 10th place a couple of years back in Paris-Roubaix as well. So as you say, this is a climb that can suit the power climber. But Paul Voss riding very, very strongly. It looked like that wasn't really a full-on attack. It was more of a test to see how the other riders are going. But he's riding very, very well. Still holding
Pressure.
at 2:25 now. The bottom of the climb, it was 2 minutes 30. So the bunch has only taken 5 seconds out of this this group. Still 14.5 kilometers to go, so a very long way, but that's a healthy lead, Brian.
Yep.
And with this sort of distance. But Wynants, that's it. We now have 3 leaders. Voss looks over his shoulders to see what sort of damage he has caused, and we head back to the peloton, and it's BMC setting a good rhythm there. But there are still several Team Sky riders, 3 or 4 Team Sky riders back there. You see Matthew Bush back there for Trek in the black, and Bradley Wiggins riding on about 5th or 6th wheel. And it's Michael Schär, the Swiss National Road Race champion, in the white. He does ride on the team of BMC, but obviously as he's the Swiss National Road champion, he'll be riding in the white jersey with the red cross, of course. His jersey fully unzipped, trying to keep as cool as possible. Many riders, there's a couple of riders from Sky having their jerseys fully unzipped to keep cool. 93 degrees. And now the Mexican Luis Davia attacks from Jelly Belly, the National Road champion of Mexico. It's all going on now, Brian.
Yeah, he's decided to light it up. It's very early in this climb. I would try and keep it together. Paul Voss is not deciding to react to this. He'll just set a tempo. Again, David De La Cruz did this for Netap Endura last year, just kept the pressure on him, was caught in the final few kilometres. The longer Paul Voss stays out there, then Netap Endura just have to sit in the wheels, and they have got a strong team here with Camaño, De La Cruz, Machado and Jose Mendes to try and do something. But as I said, nice to see the Mexican champion in this breakaway trying to go on the attack. But BMC are the riders that are taking it up. Obviously Michael Schär was the Swiss champion towards the front. They've also got Amaya Moynard, Martin Kohler towards the front, but they are thinking of Peter Stettiner. Lost a bit of time yesterday, but want to repay his team because he did come here as the leader of the team. Disappointing time trial, and he want to repay them with a stage win today.
He certainly will. He lost 2 minutes and 30 seconds in the time trial yesterday to Bradley Wiggins, 42nd place on the day. But at the moment, it's the Mexican Luis Davia who did put a little bit of a surge in there. But Paul Voss from Netap Endura in the blue and the black and white in 3rd place on your screen there, gradually pegging them back. Paul Voss, a very experienced rider, been on the circuit for a few years now, back in 2010, won stage 1 of the Tour of Catalonia, so a very capable rider, and did ride in the leader's jersey of King of the Mountains in the Giro d'Italia for a couple of stages, so a very good climber himself. As we head back, and it's Josh Edmondson now for Team Sky, setting the tempo at the front. Stage 3 of the Tour of California. We're on the final slopes of Mount Diablo. We have a breakaway of 7 riders spread all over the mountainside. The peloton at 1 minute and 25 seconds. The yellow jersey of Bradley Wiggins sat comfortably in this group, riding at about 4th wheel at the moment. Josh Edmondson riding a steady rhythm, but the leaders on the road, we have Luis Davia from Jelly Belly, and we have Paul Voss from NetApp Endura, and we also have Robbie Squire from James Hagen's Berman, the American rider, 24 years of age, now taking his turn at the front. This is one of those climbs where you can ride, you can do through and off, as it were, taking turns on the front. There is still the slipstreaming effect. About a kilometre ago, the road did steepen, and that's when the Mexican decided to launch a bit of an attack. But Paul Voss, he's not giving up. This is the sort of climb where you can get into a rhythm. It's not about panicking. If you know yourself well, you just need to pace yourself in a climb like this. If you start reacting to more punchier riders, it's curtains, isn't it? If you put yourself into the red, that's when you lose it all and you can start dropping back. But Paul Voss, riding very maturely, look, he's pegging them back now. He's riding his own race, his own rhythm, and he's still in contention. You
got to remember these 2 riders are young in front of him. The Mexican champion is 22. And Robbie Squire is 24, and Robbie Squire was actually the under-23 American champion way back in 2011, and he got some opportunities, but it didn't really kind of work out for him. But this normally happens. We get onto a climb, they feel good. I don't think both of them rode the stage last year, so the climb will be unknown to them. But Paul Voss, who was up there in the stage last year, finishing 17th, losing just over 1 minute, so he knows the climb and he's experienced enough. He's just coming back after a crash. He actually fractured the bone in his hand, so he's just kind of coming back after that. He rode Frankfurt before he came here, so he's not at full form, but he's got the experience just to let these guys attack each other and then ride back to them.
Peloton now at 1 minute 25 seconds, 7.5 miles to go. We have 3 leaders in front. I've no doubt the other members of the breakaway will soon be absorbed by the bunch, being led at the moment by the riders from Team Sky, and it's young Joshua Edmondson on the front. But at the moment it's a flying Mexican, and it's the national road champion Luis Davia, riding very, very strong. They're riding fast here. This is a bit of a plateau, almost like a false flat before it kicks up again. They're riding here about 23, 24 miles an hour up this climb. You can just tell, riding very, very strongly indeed. 11.8 Ks to go, and Davia at the moment doing lots and lots of work at the front. Robbie Squire just letting him do it, and this is what you can do if there's somebody that's eager and willing to ride. You just let them do it, don't you? He's, like, as you say, he's a very young rider. He's riding in amongst some quite esteemed company in this race, and sometimes that can be something that's quite detrimental to young riders. They don't think they get drawn in by the adrenaline and the rush of the situation that they're in. Be interesting to see if he can maintain this sort of pace all the way up the climb. But there's only so many attacks you've got. Everybody has a finite amount of energy, and it's about measuring that energy and using it and pacing yourself as best you can.
Well, Robbie Squire took the inside line, the one there was some vegetation in the middle, so he's taken the inside line. And just last week he finished 20th in the Tour of the Gila, which was a preparation race for a lot of the American continental teams for this race. A lot of hills in that race, and you know, a good preparation race. But the 3 are still riding well together. The gap is coming down all the time, but you know, interesting to see that BMC have decided to take it up early on this climb, looking for Stetina. But now it's Team Sky want to keep a good momentum, and it's the young British rider Josh Edmondson at the front.
We did say with Josh Edmondson will be riding hard, and there was a Team Soigneur from Sky at the side of the road there. We thought they would be dotted up and down the climb. These riders need to keep on taking fluids. The temperatures here today in the mid-90s. On the flatlands it was 93 degrees. Not a cloud in the sky. Very, very warm conditions. And there's not a cloud in the sky. But it's Team Sky at the front of this bunch, gradually eating into the lead of these 3 riders, now starting to look at each other. and the gap now down to just over 1 minute. And Robbie Squire, it's quite an interesting rhythm. They seem to be looking at each other and surging rather than riding as a unit. That's not the way to ride. This is a sort of climb that can suit 3 riders. They could swap turns, ride at an even pace. I just think that, and I say it respectfully, of course, that just shows a little bit of immaturity. And Paul Voss, the older statesman of this particular trio, sitting back, just relaxing, and now he's in the slipstream of 2 young riders who don't really seem to know how to ride this final climb, apart from just with unbridled passion rather than tactical nous.
You try and ride behind 2 young guns firing at each other. It's not an armchair ride for Paul Voss, but he's just kind of hanging in there, and you know, let the 2 riders of Davila and Squire just do it. They're obviously kind of carried away with the you know, the race, and you know, just a bit of inexperience, as you say. So
they're riding on continental teams, aren't they? Of course. I mean, Paul Voss is riding on a pro continental team. Wiggins and co. and the bigger teams, they're essentially 2 divisions higher. And if you use a football analogy, and it's one that's often used, it's Premiership, you know, and League One, and it's or the 3rd division as it used to be. There's quite a big divide. So these riders are riding in they're riding in a steam company in a very good position, and sometimes I guess they can get carried away with the kind of position they're in. As we head to the back of the group, a noticeable difference in the pace. These riders just setting, well, just basically trying to get to the finish to fight another day and look after their respective team leaders, or fight for stage victories later in the race. Of course, this is only stage 3, still a long way to go. A couple of undulating stages, quite a hilly final stage, and of course another very difficult mountain stage to come on stage 6. And now Paul Voss joining the others in unzipping his jersey to the hilt right the way down. Again, we are getting a little bit of picture break up here. The peloton now 1 minute 10, 9.2 kilometers to go. Again, as we head to the back, where there are open bits of road where there's not so much tree cover, we are going to get better pictures. So please do excuse the excuse the footage for the time being. We are going to get some break up. We'll try to stay with these leaders for as long as we can. 10Ks to go for the leaders. Slightly different than what we've got on the board, so we'll have to bear with that. I suggest we go with the route boards rather than the one that are on the screen. So still 10 kilometers to go for our 3 leaders. And the gradient, again, shallow now, but it does kick up near the top. Ryan, so what are the riders facing now in the last 10 kilometers in relation to the gradient?
Well, at this moment in time, it kind of eases to, I say eases to, you know, an average about 5%, but when it gets to about 5Ks to go, it kicks up to 7.4, and then further up the climb, it just 9.4 to, you know, 15-16% in the last, you know, 500 meters. The last kilometer or last kilometer and a half is very hard, and that's why Paul Voss is letting the young guns set the tempo. He just has to be there again all the time that Paul Voss is there. Netap Enduro can just sit back and let the other teams do it, but it did look as if BMC did come to the front to inject the pace to try and set up Stettiner, but Bradley's obviously decided, well, you know, we want to keep a good pace. It just means that Bradley's feeling good, and this is sort of climb that will suit him. It's just the final bit when it gets really steep, but I think when we get into that part, Bradley could be on his own, and don't discount him for the stage.
So California stage 3, we have 3 leaders out in front. These 3 leaders were part of a 7 or 8-man group that went away from the start, and remaining from that original breakaway is Paul Voss, the German riding on the Netap Enduro team, Robbie Squire from James Hagensberman, the American 24-year-old, and Luis Davila, the young Mexican national road race champion from Jelly Belly. And the chase is being led by Team Sky, riding in the service, of course, of Bradley Wiggins, who won the time trial in dominating fashion yesterday and looking very comfortable at the moment. 1 minute and 10 seconds the gap. These leaders did have 2.5 minutes at the foot of the climb. They're still working very well together, swapping turns at the front. These riders riding in very difficult conditions. Not only do they have an arduous 18-kilometer climb to face to the finish, they're riding in temperatures well in excess of 90 degrees, and we've seen them throughout the day making sure they're topping up their fluids levels. Domestique after domestique, we've seen dropping back into the race convoy, stuffing numerous bottles up their jerseys to bring back to their teammates and doling them out. It's been a constant merry-go-round of refueling and refueling all day long, and we've seen team helpers at the side of the road, even on this climb just a few kilometres ago, making sure riders have got enough on board. Vitally important stuff, and it's not something we can impress upon enough, really, Brian.
Yeah, I'm just looking now at the race situation. You can just see the neutral service is still behind. The motorbike commas there, but they pulled out the commissaire car, so it looks as if that's the referee car. It looks as if that gap is coming down a bit more now, and they're just pulling out neutral service. So I think that this gap is down to possibly about 30 seconds now. Just have been really impressed with the Mexican champion, Luis Davila. He's only had one UCI race at 2.2 just last week, and that was the Tour of the Gila, where he finished second in the mountains competition, a very hilly race. So to come here and get the breakaway from the start and still be here at this moment in time, still willing to ride. He's only 22 years old, so it looks as if he's impressed a few people today with his efforts.
Of course, you could say similar things of Robbie Squire as well, a young rider on an American domestic team. This is their race. It's the biggest race of the season. They haven't had the same sort of preparation as riders like Paul Voss of the Pro Continental and that Enduro team, and of course, the programs that the other riders have in this field. All the World Tour teams have had remarkably, tough programs. So these riders riding absolutely out of their skin, and there will be a few director sportives, Brian, no doubt, casting their eye upon the performances of these two young riders who are riding quite fearlessly and very aggressively. And it looks like an attack there from Squire. He's decided to go, puts it in a big gear, treads on it, gets a gap and sits down and powers himself away from the other two. And it looks like it's the Mexican Luis Davila who is trying to come across the gap, and for the time being Paul Voss has been distanced.
Yeah, it was a big attack there by the young 24-year-old, and was the under-23 American champion back in 2011. He rode for Chipotle, the development team, and then went to Italy, rode for Amore Vita and Ceramica Flamini for Andres, the Continental team. So he has had exposure, but it didn't work for him. He came back this year and rode for, obviously, the Jamis team, but looks impressive today, and looks as if he knows that in the past, in this race, if you show well, the likes of Chad Haga and Lawson Craddock have shown well in this race, that there's opportunities to take the step up. And certainly these young riders today, Robbie Squire and Luis Davila, are trying to show the world what they can do.
Robbie Squire now turning quite a large gear, absolutely powering up this climb. A different style behind. You can just see the figure of Luis Davila pedaling away in the white jersey of Mexican champion, trying to limit his losses as Robbie Squire powers up this climb. This climb very snaky in nature. It's quite wide. There's plenty of room for riders to move up if they wish, but it constantly changes direction and is ideal if riders want to get out of sight and out of mind. When you're chasing another rider, it's always easier when you have a fixed point in the road to try and ride yourself back to, as if it was some sort of carrot. But as we look down through the apex of that corner, we'd lost sight of the German rider, Paul Voss. He has been distanced following the attack by Robbie Squire. So riding absolutely out of his skin at the moment, to a very appreciative crowd as we get higher up this climb. No doubt there'll be more and more people at the side of the roads welcoming the Tour of California. Squire takes a quick look over his shoulder, and he probably realizes now that Luis Davila has remade contact and has joined back up. So we now have two riders in front. Peloton now at 30 seconds. And unfortunately, Brian, looks like Paul Voss's brave ride is now over, and it won't be very long before he's back in the peloton. Yeah, it was important. He was in the breakaway, so he's done his job. But I tell you what, these guys are going hammer and this is like a boxing match. They're absolutely they're tearing shreds off each other.
What you can do, I can do better. You try and attack me, and I'll try and attack you.
It's good to see, though, isn't it? It's great to see.
Two young riders.
It's completely unformulaic. It's natural. What I can pretty much guarantee here, it doesn't appear these guys. Well, they're not riding to power, are they? They're just taking chunks out of each other and attacking and attacking. It's very refreshing. It's like the racing of old. So one knockout blow from Robbie Squire. He had this guy on the deck, and this guy's just counterpunched and launched himself up the road and is now back in the lead again. This is fantastic racing. Of course, there's still only 30 seconds in front of the bunch. That's still being led by Team Sky. And Bradley Wiggins himself has taken to the front. This is the first time we've seen the bunch in a couple of kilometres. A couple of eager fans running alongside, but look at Bradley Wiggins there, riding in a veritable stately fashion, the head of affairs, the Olympic time trial champion, of course, Tour de France champion, in that famous year when he won the Tour. He took out Paris-Nice, he took out Tour Romandy, he took out the Dauphiné as well in a remarkable run of form.
Well, we did speculate about this, Matt, that he did have a kind of weakish team. When it came to the climb, he would have to take it up and probably try and take it up in the last 3 kilometres, but we're somewhat quite away from that. So, you know, Bradley Wiggins has had to take it on his own, and, you know, he must feel confident enough and good enough to be able to do this. It's who's going to be able to stay with him, and there's plenty of opportunities for a stage win today for some of these guys behind.
Exactly. Bradley Wiggins, although he doesn't appear to have any teammates, they do seem to have fallen by the wayside. They put a lot of work in today. They've ridden on the front all day long to make sure that breakaway didn't get too far in front. They then brought the break to heel at the foot of this climb. We saw Josh Edmondson right out of his skin about halfway up this climb. I think I can see the other Brit, Adam Yates, in there. We think he could be a danger man too, but Bradley Wiggins essentially now, he's in control. He's riding a time trial, he's full of confidence off the back of a very, very good Paris-Roubaix. He's trained, he's lost weight, and you don't ride at the front of a bunch in the yellow jersey unless you are full of confidence.
Oh, full of confidence, but anything can happen. We're not going to wish it on Bradley Wiggins, but that's why it's important to have a teammate as close to you as possible, because if there's a puncture, you've got to remember you have to take it off the neutral service motorbike. The team's car will not be behind this group, so that's why you always try and have someone round about you, either jump on his bike or get a wheel change. And exactly. We don't wish it on anybody, but he is slightly exposed if he does have any kind of mechanical mishap, but it does look as if he is stretching the field out, and it's going to be a very entertaining last kind of 5-6 kilometres. But great effort here by the Mexican champion, the young 22-year-old from Jelly Belly, and that's Luis Davila.
He's ridden very well. Bear in mind he's ridden this climb extremely aggressively, but of course for the previous 100 miles he's been riding through and off in really hot, difficult conditions. So a superb ride by the young Mexican, but I don't think it's going to be too long until he's absorbed by the peloton as he looks over his shoulder. But Bradley Wiggins still setting a ferocious tempo on the front, but look how still he is on his bike. He is almost majestic on a bike. He's so composed, pedals a bike so fluidly. It's he sits on a bike as if the bike is part of him. You know, some people look very good on a bike. Other riders look as if the bike is distinctly separate, but you know, the bike looks as if it's a part of him.
Just looking to see who's sitting behind. See the BMC rider. I know that the Cannondale rider sitting in third place is George Bennett. So that's why obviously Cannondale were trying to set him up. But it's a brave effort by the riders in front. Obviously Robbie Squire from Jamis has already been brought back, and Bradley Wiggins is just about to catch the last of the breakaway riders, Luis Davila, the Jelly Belly rider, the young 22-year-old from Mexico.
Very brave ride by Luis Davila of Jelly Belly, soon to be absorbed. And now will he try and stay in the group? I've no doubt he will. Very, very brave ride from him. 5.4 kilometers to go. Stage 3 of the Tour of California, taking us up the slopes of Mount Diablo in the Mount Diablo State Park. We did have a breakaway of 8 riders, which was reduced to 7, which then went down to 3, and the last of those escapees has now been brought to heel by Bradley Wiggins himself, sat on the front of the bunch in the yellow jersey, and the last rider to succumb to that pressure was Luis Davila from Jelly Belly, the Mexican road race champion. But all the bunch now has been whittled down. We can see one of the groups further down the slopes. It looks like Taylor Phinney there. Team Sky ridden on the front of the peloton all day long.
It looks as if he's on a Sunday run.
His shoulders are hardly moving. You could probably balance a cup of tea on his shoulders there and it wouldn't spill. A very impressive display.
He's just riding up Sacalobra in Mallorca, which is on his doorstep where he lives now. He lives in Port Palenza most of the time. But the funny thing is, it's not funny for the rest of them riding behind him, but they're all in one line. Normally when you get somebody riding a tempo, as you know, Matt, it's slightly bunched, but everybody's in one line, so the pace is really up.
It certainly is. He's setting a quite ferocious pace. It looks like Machado's also there. It looks like Adam Yates is there. It looks like Bush is also there. So all the main contenders, Stettin is also there, under a little bit of pressure. As we said, in 20 kilometres, He lost 2.5 minutes to Bradley Wiggins, but what a display by Wiggins at the moment. Nobody can attack on this sort of gradient at this sort of speed. He'll be putting out somewhere in the region of 440, 450 watts. That's the kind of power he can ride at. Very confident, hardly moving at all. All the other riders rocking and rolling in, out of the saddle. While Bradley pedals incredibly a lower gear than everybody else as well. Looks absolutely in control at the moment. And I'm just wondering when we're going to see these attacks. We do know that the gradient does kick up towards the end. And I do think that's where we are going to see some attacks. But who it's going to come from, we don't know. Because at the moment, Bradley Wiggins is putting these riders in all sorts of difficulty. One by one, they are dropping out the back of what is now quite a select group.
You just see Orica Green Edge on the right-hand side, just sitting, you can just see the white jersey there. And they are looking after Adam Yates, the young man from Britain who won the Tour of Turkey recently, so a fantastic result for him, and he's just sitting in about 5th place at this moment in time. So a very small select group, and Bradley Wiggins still setting a very good tempo.
Yeah, that's a good aerial shot there to help us pick out some of the other riders that could pose a threat to Bradley Wiggins. But the kilometres are ticking by. I did count, if my eyesight's any good, at least 4 Garmin Sharp riders, and I would imagine they would be, although we'll get confirmation soon. Acevedo, Danielson, Dennis, and one other. Could be Phil Gaiman, we don't know, but it did look like the figure of Danielson and Acevedo, very distinctive styles. And of course, Rowan Dennis, a great ride yesterday, sitting 2nd overall in the classification. Luke conceding 44 seconds to Bradley Wiggins. I'll just run my finger down the classification for you. 1st overall, of course, is Bradley, sat at the front. Rowan Dennis in 2nd at 44 seconds. And then we have, well, the virtual classification. Thiago Machado at 1:19. Lawson Craddock's there too. David de la Cruz is there. Damien Howson from Australia is also there. Emma Zubeldia, the Spaniard, the veteran Spaniard riding on Trek Factory Racing, could be a bit of a dark horse for the stage today. Did a relatively good time trial yesterday. Lost a couple of minutes. But no attacks as yet. Bradley Wiggins still setting this rhythm. It doesn't look as if he's in any difficulty. Not grimacing too much, looks pretty cool. His face very different to the effort that he was putting in yesterday. Just breathing in nice and smoothly, gulping in the air. But yesterday his face contorted as he pushed as hard as he could. And what a ride it was yesterday, Brian. What a display of time trialing. But nobody still, as the kilometres tick by, is attacking. This pace is just too high. Yeah,
it's too high, and a lot of them are waiting for inside the last 3 kilometres. They know it's going to be very difficult. I can see that Lawson Craddock is also here. He finished 7th in this stage last year, and he's got the white and green jersey on, sitting, I think, about 4th from the front. So we've got Bradley Wiggins, one of the riders from BMC. I'm not too sure if that's Moynard, but the rider from Cannondale is George Bennett. Then we've got Lawson Craddock, Lawrence Tendam from Belkin up towards the front as well. So they're just sitting and waiting to pounce. Also one of the riders from the Optum team also up near the front. And there's a mixture, and hopefully we'll be able to pick more riders out. Some riders in there for Trek Factory Racing as well.
Yeah, Lawrence Tendam did actually contact him after yesterday's crash. Crashed into another rider just after the finish line, and is badly bruised. That's why you'll see he's got bandages on his knees. He's sitting in
Stettin in 2nd place.
Yeah, Stettin in 2nd. So Tendam, had a very good Tour de France last year. Previously finished 8th on general classification in the Vuelta a España, and 13th last year overall in the Tour de France. Took a stage last year of the in 2008, sorry, of the Criterium International. So one of the most experienced riders in this select group, and it's gradually being even more thinned out. There's riders going out the back now. You can see there are a couple of riders absolutely on the rivet, on the tips of the saddle. Bradley Wiggins setting an absolutely ferocious pace. Takes a glance over his shoulder. When you round one of the hairpins, it's an opportunity to look over your shoulder. You can see the riders behind. Look at their faces. And now we have the first of the attacks coming from one of the riders from the Optum team, by the looks of things. We'll get the number for in a moment, but a brave attack.
Carter Jones, it could be from the Optum team. So he's the first to attack as we get close to the kind of difficult part of this climb, and it just gets harder and harder all the way to the top.
Yeah, the gradient really starts to kick up. Last year's stage, of course, won by Leopold Koenig. He went on to later win a stage of the Vuelta Hispana as well on a similar mountaintop finish. He's not here this year, so will be another victor on this very difficult climb. Lots of fans out on the side of the road, but his jersey unzipped, very hot conditions, over 90 degrees, baking heat. Bradley Wiggins didn't react at all to that. All he'll do now is just reel him in, slowly but surely. He won't change his pace, he'll just keep it exactly the same. All others riders can rely on is an explosive surge and then try and hold it. It's very doubtful this rider can hold the same sort of power that Bradley Wiggins is putting out at the moment. .3 miles to go of stage 3 of the Tour of California, and it's Carter Jones who won the King of the Mountains in last year's Tour of California, so he'll know this climb very well, who has attacked the group, being led by the yellow jersey, Bradley Wiggins. The 8-man breakaway that has dominated the day were brought to heel finally by Team Sky. Bradley Wiggins' teammates have gradually dropped by the wayside after working very hard for him all day long. But now Carter Jones has decided to attack. There's not long to go now, but Bradley Wiggins has ridden for the last 3 or 4 kilometres at the head of affairs. Peter Stetten, a #1 from BMC, the American favourite, and the leader of BMC on his wheel. Other riders in the mix include Numat Zelbidia, Rowan Dennis, 2nd overall, Acevedo, who was 3rd overall last year, and another rider loses contact under the pressure being applied by Bradley Wiggins at the front, hardly moving at all. Such is his pace. Lawrence Dentam is also there. We can confirm Acevedo is indeed there, but this is incredible. Quality riders are now dropping out the back, and Bradley Wiggins is hardly moving at all.
Yeah, Zubeldia now gone, an experienced rider from Trek Factory Racing, but this man is on form, Carter Jones, and he won the Tour of the Gila just last week, so very good rider. Obviously winning the Tour, the King of the Mountains last year in the Tour of California. Good form at this moment, and he looks good out the saddle, tapping away at a very good rhythm here, but he's looking around. You can still see the yellow jersey at the front, and you know, one by one they're dropping off the back here. We still haven't got to the kind of hardest part of this climb, so again only about 10 or 12 riders now in contention. And when Bradley came to the front with no other teammates, with about 6-7 k's to go, he's been at the front the whole way. He's such a great rider at doing this, just riding within himself all the way up this climb. He done it in the time trial. We know he's on great form. From Paris-Roubaix, he's dropped 5 kilograms, so this is a great test for him, and it's a show of strength. He really wants to make the Tour de France team, and it's saying to everybody that I want in the team. I'm very capable of being in the team, and I want to go into the team, especially when it starts in Yorkshire.
Well, after a very difficult season last year, he's certainly come back. Bradley Wiggins, of course, took the Tour of Britain at the back end of last year, and then a very well-deserved silver medal in the World Time Trial Championships. Second, of course, not to Bradley Wiggins, to Tony Martin, the German. But again, without even a glance, he rides straight past Carter Jones. Didn't even nod at him, just rode at his own pace. It's as if Bradley Wiggins is riding this climb on his own, regardless of what anybody else wants to do. He's just certainly doing his own thing, and he is starting to grimace a bit now, starting to feel the pain as the gradient kicks up. Gripping those bars, Stetten is still stuck to his wheel. He hasn't moved off Bradley Wiggins' wheel for the whole of this climb. And it looks like Craddock there also for Giant Shimano in the black and the white jersey. Lawrence Tendam is still there in the green and black jersey. The Dutch rider, 15th overall last year in the Tour de France, a very classy rider indeed. And that's a picture of Lars Baum out the back. So we're getting some picture breakup here. So we'll head back to the helicopter view. Bradley Wiggins still turning a noticeably lower gear than the rest of the riders that he's with. That track souplesse certainly has not deserted him. Rock steady, on the hoods, tapping away. He'll have the power meter in front of him. He knows exactly what he can and he can't do, and that's why he doesn't react when he doesn't think he needs to. He's also got a good time buffer on 2nd overall, which is Rowan Dennis, 44 seconds. And as the kilometers tick by, it means that there's less and less road for the other riders to put any time at all into Bradley Wiggins, and there's a good view of the back. The riders rocking and rolling, looking across at each other. What can we do is what they're thinking probably. Adam Yates there, number 57, out of the saddle. very classy young British rider with a very bright future ahead of him. Took a stage and the overall of the recent Tour of Turkey and took that victory on a hilltop finish. Number 31 there, Matthew Bush, 6 overall last year in this race and was top 10 on this particular stage. He's going to know this climb very, very well. And it's now that the gradient will really start to bite. Bradley Wiggins, I've not seen him, Brian, get out of the saddle at all on this climb. He's just doing his own thing, setting this relentless rhythm. And there goes the first attack, and it's Acevedo.
Yeah, Acevedo did this last year and finished second in the stage, but Bradley Wiggins is just going to try and bring him back. It does look as if Bradley wants to win the stage today, and he wants to pay back his team for riding tremendously well so far. He looks in awesome form. Also in this front group is Stetina from BMC. It just looks, tell you what, it's just so easy. Lawson Craddock finished 7th in this stage last year. He knows the stage, sitting in the white and green jersey just behind Bradley Wiggins. Also in this group, we've mentioned 10 Dam, Carter Jones for Optimum and the Optum in the orange helmet. You've also got Chavez and Yates of Orica, Machado of NetApp Endura, and Boucher, I think, is still in here for Trek Factory Racing.
A very select group we have now. 1.4 kilometres to go. It's actually not 1.4 kilometres to go. That looks as if it's the red kite, if I'm not mistaken, Brian. The graphics are slightly wrong, so we're into the final kilometre. And
it kicks up 15-16% very, very soon. You can just see Bradley Wiggins giving it full pelt in the front. Still a stage up for grabs today. Rowan Dennis is also in here for Garmin. I think he's just moving up now. He realises that he has to be as close to Bradley Wiggins as possible and comes up to second place.
Rowan Dennis in second place. Adam Yates, the young British rider, just moving up on the outside, but Acevedo did go. And when he went, it was for the first time I saw Bradley Wiggins react. He didn't get out of the saddle, but what he noticeably did was increase the tempo. He's got a grimace on his face now as he presses on as hard as he can. Not long to go now. He rounds the final. Look at the face of Bradley Wiggins now. Tapping along exactly the same rhythm. Nobody can do anything at all. The road does, in a few moments, kick up. We've got half a mile to go. Tendam out of the saddle, just to the right of your picture. Adam Yates still there. This is going to be a very interesting finale. Can anybody, with 500 metres to go, do anything about a rampaging Bradley Wiggins? Certainly at the moment, at the top of his game for Team Sky. He takes a glance over his shoulder.
This is motor pacing uphill for everybody else. It's Adam Yates goes on the right-hand side, is it? Is it Chavez?
It's Yates, it looks like Yates. So Adam Yates has gone. And that was quite the distinctive figure of Adam Yates. Yep. Who has gone with 400 metres to go. What a ride by the Brit. Tapping out a rhythm up the cleat. He went at a key moment. He came out of the slipstream of Bradley Wiggins. A fantastic ride by the young Brit with 200 metres to go. You can see the gradient biting now.
Dennis is coming.
Dennis is on is closing the gap on Adam Yates. Has he gone too early? It looks like he has. It looks Rowan Dennis is out of the saddle. He fell off on the first stage. A remarkable time trial comeback, finished second to Bradley Wiggins. You can see he's bandaged, battle-scarred, but unbowed. This is an absolutely remarkable ride by the Australian on the Garmin Shark team to take the victory atop Mount Diablo. Second in the time trial, crashed on stage 1, his jersey unzipped. He punches the air with delight. Thiago Machado, it looks like, took second place. Looks like Craddock in third place. But what a ride by Rowan Dennis. The young Australian, 23 years of age, timed it perfectly. Adam Yates, the young Australian riding for Orica Green Edge, took his chance early, but was foiled by the gradient in the last couple of 100 metres. But what a ride here by Bradley Wiggins. He's going to have kept that yellow jersey, but fair play to Rowan Dennis. He's eaten into the lead there. Fantastic stuff. So, Rowan Dennis, our winner atop Mount Diablo today, gasping in the air, 93, 94 degrees, and that's why his jersey's unzipped. I don't think Garmin Sharp are going to be too worried about the sponsorship there, but Bradley Wiggins still will be in yellow. but I think Rowan Dennis took about 10 or 15 seconds there from Bradley Wiggins, maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah, looking at
but a very good bit of timing there.
But Bradley Wiggins looked awesome in that climb. You can just see he is in top form after the time trial yesterday. But hats off to Rowan Dennis as well. Was the man closest to him in the time trial yesterday after falling off in the first stage, coming back, having road rash, having a bad shoulder, coming back. And in this 15-16% climb, having a bad shoulder and going. Unfortunately for Adam Yates, he did go early. He didn't know the climb.